Welcome to It's Time for Yarn. This is the third installment of our planned pooling series. If you've missed 1 and 2, don't worry, I'll have those linked down below for you to catch up on. Now, today we're going to be talking about how to do this checkered pattern. This is using Red Heart neon stripes, and today we're going to be using Red Heart primary stripes. Now, if you'll recall, in one of my Ollie's hauls, I had purchased Red Heart Super Saver Derby stripes. It didn't quite go as planned, because if you'll take a look at the yarn here, see how thick these stripes are? The color changes are very long with derby stripes. I needed some stripes that were a little smaller to make it come out like this. These are smaller squares. With these giant color changes, it makes big squares. So tip number 1, when you're trying to make this checkered pattern, first of all, the colors have to have the same length in each color. So with the argyle pattern, you have different lengths, so you might have a couple of shorts and then a long colorway, but with the plaid here, you need them to all be the same length. So first tip, they all need to be the same length. Second tip, they need to be shorter. These big giant ones just aren't going to work. So take a look, try to find stripes that are a little bit thinner, that change a little faster. You can't have too long or too short colorways, or it's not going to pool correctly. All right, now that we've talked about the yarn, let's talk about how to get started with this project. So with this kind of pattern, it's easiest to start with a chain of whatever color your border is going to be. Now with this primary stripes, I'm going to use black as the border. I think it will make the colors pop. I like doing a dark border anyway. I really enjoy how the black looks here. I have plenty of black that I found at Ollie's, so I'm good to go. So I decided to use black. Now I started a chain with the black, and you'll notice I did not clip it off. I did not tie it off. It is still open. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the camera overhead and you'll see what I mean. I'm going to start my sequence on the end here, and I'm going to go as long as I can on my color sequence, as long as I need to, but I may need more chain depending on how long the color sequence is. So I'm going to leave this open so that I can insert my hook here and add more chains so I can keep going if necessary. So that's my first thing to do to get started. Pick a border color, make a chain, and leave it open. So I'm going to take you through how to get this started. So I have my chain of my border color, and at the end here it's just left open because I'm going to add more chains most likely so that it's wide enough for what I need it to be for my color sequence. So taking a look at our yarn here, it starts with a yellow, which is a partial color change. Now this isn't very much yarn to work with, and I don't think I'm going to have enough to make a cluster of 3 double crochets, which is what we're doing. So I'm actually going to pull the yarn out until I get to the next color. I do have black, but the way that this color sequence goes, it is black every other color. So I don't want to start with black because I'm going to get confused about which black to stop on when I get to the end of the color sequence. So I'm instead going to go to the next color. I'm just going to pull this yarn out until I get to, what's it going to be? Oh, green. There it is. So green is my first color that I choose. Now, I can choose to start right where it changes, but realistically, it doesn't really matter where I start in the color sequence, as long as I can make complete clusters of 3 double crochet. So let me show you what that means. I'm going to just pick a place in my green to start. Now, since I'm starting on green, I am going to end on green when I get to the end of my chain. We'll talk more about that in just a minute. So here's my beginning chain. Now I apologize, black is kind of hard to see, but we're going to do our best. So now let's get started. I'm going to just put in, insert here into my chain. Now I just have 1 loop on there. You might decide to do 2 just to make it a little sturdier. It's up to you. Either way is fine. So I'm going to slip stitch that on, just slip stitch it on, and I'm going to begin with a chain 3. That's all. Now that counts as a double crochet. So we're going to begin this row. That starts to build up the side of our work so that our sides are nice and straight. Now I'm going to skip 2 chains, so skip 2, and I'm going to make my first double crochet cluster. So I'm going to do 3 double crochets into the same chain space. Okay, 1. Now I'm going to skip 2 again. Now with this first color, since this is just a partial of the colorway, I'm not really concerned with how many clusters I get in this first one because I don't know how many I could make. Remember, I'm looking for my magic number of green. Right now I have 2 full clusters of green, and that's fine. Let's keep going. Continuing along to make clusters of 3, that's our granny stitch in our first color. Now I just selected this I9 hook, this 5.5 millimeter. I just picked it up and started working with it, and I might find after I finish the greens that I can't complete even clusters with this size hook, so I might need to go up or down in a hook size once I get to the black. Now I'm almost to the black, so I'm hoping I can get another cluster of 3 here, and let's see if we can do that. Let's see. 1, 2. Now I can only get 2 out of the 3 that I need, so I have a choice to make. Okay, I can either be okay with this one just having 2 as opposed to the 3 and count this as a cluster, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or I can take all of this out and start again, but take some of the yarn away so that it doesn't leave me with these 2, or I can go back and tighten these 2 clusters, or maybe 3 clusters, so I have a little more of the yarn to make this green have 3. But for me, I think I'm going to be okay with it just having 2 clusters. I don't want to go back and take these out and redo them and hope that it lands correctly. I'm just going to be okay with it having 3. Now, here, actually, you know what? Let's do it this way. I have enough for 2 extra double crochets, so I'm going to put an extra double crochet in this cluster, and then let's make the next one. 1, 2, 3, and I had enough for another cluster. So these 2 are going to have 4. And you know what? Because I'm color pooling, that's going to be okay. Because what's important is that I control where this color changes. So to recap, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 clusters of green so far. Now I don't know if 7 is going to be my magic number. I actually know that it's not because I have some green that I didn't use. So I know that my magic number is going to be more than 7 because I need to make more clusters of green. I could have made more clusters of green. So now we're starting with our black. We know that it's going to be more than 7, and considering that I only have a little bit of this green left and I had 2 extra double crochets, I think my magic number is probably going to be 8 clusters. So let's see. Now that's just me observing the yarn as I'm going along, and that's the hardest part of color pooling, is observing what the yarn is doing and figuring out as you go along. But once you get it figured out, it comes along easily like magic. All right, so we're starting with black, and we're going to start making our clusters of 3 double crochet, making sure that we skip 2 between each cluster. So there's 3 double crochets there, and then skip 2, 1, 2, 3, skip 2, 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to continue along until I run out of black yarn. Now notice I am not doing a chain 1 between these clusters because I want the fabric to be tighter so that it really makes that checkered pattern. If there's too much space between the stitches, it won't be as clear. The pattern won't be as tight. Let's see how many we've got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I probably, taking a look at this yarn, I probably have enough to do one more before I get to the blue. Okay, so I've done a cluster of 3 and I still have some black left. Now, I can see here that I've made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 clusters in the black. And judging by my green, I probably could have made 8 in the green as well. So I think I'm gonna go with 8 as my magic number. Now here's where I have a choice to make. Since I had a little bit of yarn left over, I can choose to either go up a hook size, so my stitches are a little bit bigger, so that I can possibly get to the end of this before running out of yarn, or you can do what I'm gonna do and just add a 4th double crochet to that last stitch. I'm just gonna add that 4th one because honestly, I don't wanna undo all of this. I don't wanna do it again with a bigger hook. And I don't mind having one little extra double crochet there. I'm in control of this outfit. I'm planning this color the way that it goes, and if I want to have a 4th one there, it's going to be just fine. So now I know that in a full color sequence, I can make 8 clusters. I may end up with a little extra 1 and 1, but that will be fine. So now that I'm at blue, I'm going to continue on using that magic number of 8 clusters until I get to the next color. Next color is black again. All right, so let's do it. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so again, I have 8 clusters, but I still have a little bit of blue left. So again, I'm gonna just slip in a double crochet extra on that last one. So now I'm ready to start with my black. Now some of you, that might bother you, but I get the feeling that when I get to the next level, it's gonna eat up more yarn because I'm gonna have to go around these middle stitches. So this first row, if it has a little extra stitch here and there, I think it's gonna be okay. So now we're in our next color. We're on to black. So let's make our magic number of 8 clusters with our black. Now, as I'm working, I can see I am running out of my chain. I still have more stitches to do in black. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I still have to do another cluster of black, and I have to continue on until I get to green. Red is the next color. Since I started on green, I'm going to need green on the other end as well to go all the way through the color sequence. So what do I do now? Well, since I need more chains, I'm simply going to pick up my chain that I left open on purpose because I didn't know how many I'd need. I left that open, and I'm just going to add on a few more chains and then continue on with my green clusters. Now I'm going to continue this all the way until I get to the green. You can see here that red is my next color, and if I keep going, black will be next, and then after that will be, I believe, orange, and then yellow, and then green. So we have quite a few colors to get through before we are back to the green. So you guys continue through your colorway, and I'll continue through mine, and I'll see you back in just a minute. So once you have crocheted 8 granny stitches per color, and you've gotten back to your original color, let's talk about what to do next. Now for me, I began with green, So I'm going to end with green. If you started with yellow, then you would go through the sequence until you got back to yellow. Now, our magic number that we're using is 8 clusters per color. When I started, remember, I had 7 green clusters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that means this sequence is missing 1. Down here at the end is where we're going to put the 8th cluster for green. So I've got my blacks finished. Let's do our 8th cluster for green. There's our 8th cluster for green. Just like at the beginning, we have a chain 3 to help us build our side. We need that same chain 3 on the end. So we've done our 8th cluster. We have 7 at the beginning, 1 at the end. We're going to skip 2 and do 1 more double crochet to build up the side of our blanket. Now, once I've gotten to the end, I need to turn around. I'm going to chain 3. That's going to count as a double crochet in the next cluster. Let's see how that looks. Now, this is getting in my way. This is the black from the chain that I did. I don't need it anymore, so I actually am going to take out some of these chains and then snip that off and tie it off. There we go. Just tighten it and get rid of that. Get it out of my way. Finished with that. All right, so here we are. We have our last cluster to make the 8th green one. We have a double crochet on the end, and then we have chained 3 to begin the side of our blanket as we turn. That chain 3 counts as a double crochet, so that counts as the first double crochet in our chain, or in our greeny cluster. So 1, I'm going to go right in that big opening that we made by skipping 2. So 1, 2. So I've done 2 double crochets to make this cluster here. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to continue making clusters of 3 in these open spaces between these clusters. Now here's where we have to kind of bend our thinking just a little, because remember, this one cluster counted as the 8th cluster for this first row. However, it is connected with the rest of this green that's coming out now, that we're using now. And our magic number is 8. So I have got to keep this section of green to 8 clusters. So this one helps me get my color sequence correct by adding on 1 more, because I only had 7 here, but it also counts in this section. So to say that again, let's pretend, we're pretending here, I only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clusters of green at the beginning. If that had been the case, I would have needed to add on 3 here to make the total of 8 in our magic number. So however many clusters you began with in your color, you need to add on that many more at the end to make your magic number in total for that first row. So as we've turned, we're keeping our magic number. So I have 1 cluster of green here, and it's connected with this as I turn. So I'm going to continue to make 8 clusters of green. So I have 1 here and 1 here, so I'm up to 2. And then we're going to make the 3rd one. Now I'm going to tell you how I count this to keep myself on track, because it can be frustrating to have to count each time to try to keep up with where we are. So I count, this is 1, 2, this is my 3rd cluster, so this would be 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4, 5, 5, 5, 6, another 6, 6 again, 7, 7, and 7. I'm looking for 8, so 8, 8. Oh, I might have a tiny bit of green left. I don't think I'm going to have enough to do that last cluster. I don't. There's quite a bit of black in there. Now, if I'm okay with that black, or I've tried a bunch of times and I just can't get that black to go away, I can be okay with leaving it there, but I like to have a nice crisp line, so I do not want all that black in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take back this 7th cluster, and I'm going to do it a little tighter, actually quite a bit tighter, so I have more green yarn. So these stitches are smaller and tighter so that it uses less yarn. So when I get to this 8th cluster, I have enough. Okay, now I have enough to make that 8th cluster and it not have any black. Now let's double check that count. 1, and I have this chain 3 here to make the side. That does not count as a cluster. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I've made 8 green. I'm going to continue. Black is next, so I'm going to make 8 black. Then the next color, I believe, is yellow. Make 8 yellow. Now they're not going to line up just yet. This is our 2nd row. We want that 3rd row to be where the colors start to show that diagonal that we're looking for. Now, if you're not sure what I mean by that diagonal, I would encourage you to pause and go check out the first video in this series if you haven't seen it yet, where I go through the basics of color pooling and show in more detail what I mean. Now I'm going to continue on in my clusters of 8, magic number 8, until I get to the end, and then I'll show you what we do there. We are back at the end of our row, and we have our green from before and our chain 3 that we used to build our side. I've done 8 clusters in each color all the way to the end. This is my 2nd row. Now as I go around this corner, this is where the magic happens. We're going to see if we have made yarn magic and be able to get these to line up diagonally. So fingers crossed, we did it right. Now I'm back to green, and let me show you what we do now that we're back at this end. Now remember, our magic number is 8. Before, I had to look at the end of the 1st row to know that I needed to add 1 more on the end here. However, now that that 1st row is completed, I do not need to worry about the other end anymore. I'm only going to continue doing 8 back and forth until I finish my blanket. So here we are, we're on our green. We need to do 8 clusters. So we have 1, 1, 1. Now our next cluster is going to go into this space between that chain 3 and this cluster here. 2, 2, and 2. So now that chain 3 and the side of this double crochet here are going to start building up the side of our blanket. Now again, to turn, I'm going to chain 3 and turn my work. Now on that last row, I did 2, 1, 2. Now I have this chain 3, but my next space isn't until way over here. So now before, we had a space towards this side that we could do directly in there, and this became a part of our cluster. But since our hole is way over there, this is going to be a standalone chain 3, just the same as this one here. So this is just a chain 3 to build our side. So we've done that chain 3. I have 1, 2 clusters of green already. Let's do our 3rd one. 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4, 5, 5, 5. Now, if I'm going too quickly, you can pause the video to catch up. I do crochet rather fast, so if it's too fast for you, just slow it down. You can change the speed on the video, or you can just pause until you've caught up. So now, since I said that, I forgot what number I was on. So let's count. 1, 2. Now I'm not worried about this row, just the one underneath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so we're on 7, 7, 7, 8, 8, and I'm running out of green, so that works out perfectly. Now I'm going to do this one a little tighter to try to get the least amount of black in there as possible. Now I don't mind if there's like one little piece that's black, that'll be okay with me. So now let's see if this is lining up correctly. Now to me, I see I have a green, black, green, green, black, green, green, black, diagonal that is lining up. My next stitch is black, so the diagonal from that one should be black. Black is next up, so let's see. Let's check it out. 1, 1, 1. Okay, so I have a black, and directly diagonal from that is another black. Now this middle color isn't important, just that every other one is the same color. So here these two greens are the same, these two blacks are the same. This is a black, so I'll need to do to make sure a black is diagonal all the way until the end of this black. So let's do it. 1, now we're at 2, 2, 2, 3. Fun fact, I learned to count like that from my great-grandfather when he taught me to play poker when I was about 5 years old, when we'd be passing out the cards, so like 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3 to the people playing, so that we could keep count with how many cards we had passed out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Last cluster for this black, and we'll see if we're still on track. It is important to check at the end of each color to make sure that you're still lined up correctly. So I have a blue one next. Blue will be my next color. Black, diagonal from that is a black. My diagonals are black, 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 looking good. So since this is a blue, I have a blue, a yellow. My very next one should be blue, and it is a blue. So I am well on my way to creating a checker pattern on my blanket here. I'm going to continue with my groups of 8, and then I'll be back to show you how to join on a skein. Now I have worked all the way through my first skein. I've gotten this many rows, 1, 2, 3, 4 rows, and I've ended on yellow. I have 2 yellow clusters that I was able to complete. So I need to add on another skein at the yellow. Now it is vitally important that I pay attention to the colorway and how it changes so that I know that it is changing in the same order as the last skein I just used. So I'm going to be looking to see that it changes from black to orange to black and then yellow again to make sure it's going in the same order. Now my new skein starts on green, so I'm gonna have to unravel all the way until I get to some yellow. Now I'm not gonna throw this away because it might prove itself useful later in the project if I need to join in at a green. So I'm just going to wind this up into a quick little ball and get this ready to get to yellow. So when I find my yellow, I'll be right back. All right, I'm back to the yellow. As you can see on my ball here, I had orange, then some black, and then yellow, which is perfect. That's exactly how our color sequence is going. And the balls of yarn, the skeins of yarn are usually skeined up the same way, so you shouldn't run into issues with the colors going the correct way, but it's always best to make sure. So I have orange, black, and now I'm back at yellow. So I'm going to undo these and show you 2 ways to join this in. Now I'm going to snip this off and put this little ball over to the side. I did give myself a little bit of room in the black just to be safe. I don't want to cut it too close to the yellow. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to end that last cluster of black with 2 loops on my hook. And now this piece is from the old skein that's been clipped off, so I'm going to move that down out of the way. And then I'm going to take this yellow as close to the black as I can and drape it over my hook. and pull it through both of those loops. Tighten up just a tad. And then I can continue on in yellow. Just that simple. One, whoa, one. Now this is a little loose, so I'm gonna tighten that. I need to undo it and tighten it a little more. Tighten those up. So it takes a little bit of finagling, a little bit of playing around with it to get it to be the right tension. But that is the simplest way to join on a new skein. I like to do a different way as well. Some people don't like this way because it does create a knot, but I don't usually mind a knot. The way I see it in the big picture, it's not, you know, the end of the world if there's a knot in it, and it's handmade. People know that it's handmade, and I had to join on another skein, so it happens. So I like to create a magic knot. Now it can be difficult to get the colors to go exactly where they should be, so I may need to add on an extra double crochet in yellow or take one away in a cluster if these colors don't line up exactly right. So just keep that in mind, that you are in control of this. So if you need to, you can take away a cluster or add a cluster. You're controlling this color. So I'm going to take one of my ends here, lay it over and go under, and I'm just tying a knot around the other yellow piece. And then I'm going to take this piece and do the same thing, just tying a knot around the pieces, just around each other. This is called a magic knot, so if you wanted to look it up, I haven't mastered how to teach the magic knot yet, so I apologize if this is a little confusing. If this is too confusing, if you're not sure what I'm doing, that's a-okay. Just join on by pulling it into the loops as I just showed you, or you could look up how to do a magic knot, and it's super tight. There is a little knot, but like I said, I don't mind. So let's go back and add this on. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I am on my 8th cluster of black. Now I don't know if the length of my yellow is exact anymore because I'm joining on and I didn't calculate, I didn't measure it, so I don't know if it added on exactly perfect on that yellow length. So we, again, may have to add on an extra double crochet to make it land correctly. Now there was a little bit too much yellow in that last black part, so I needed to redo that. All right, here we go. We're on the yellow. Did we do it? 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3. Now you see we've added it on, and there is a little knot there, but it blends right in. Doesn't bother me. 4, 5, 5, 5. And our first 6, our second one, and the third. Okay, we've got quite a bit left in the yellow, so I'm going to do my 8th cluster and see what we've got going on. Okay, so here's the 8th cluster. I do have a lot of yellow, so I'm going to go back to, I think I'm going to go back to the 6th cluster and add a 4th double crochet on that one. Start with that one, and then add a 4th double crochet to the 7th one as well. So this is our 7th cluster, and it gets a 4th one as well. And then our 8th cluster, let's see how it works up now with our 8th one. Okay, the 8th one still has a good bit of yellow, so I'm going to tighten this up and squeeze in one more double crochet in the yellow. Now, this time I needed to add extra double crochets to 3 clusters, and that's okay. I got my yellow to end on the diagonal like I needed it to be so that my colors land correctly. That is the most important thing. These extra clusters are not going to be noticed once your blanket is bigger. You're the only one that's going to see that. So don't worry too much about that. And if I had messed up and I didn't have enough yellow to make an 8th cluster, I could have left it with just 2 clusters and gone on, and nobody would ever know. There are some clusters here in this part that I've already done that only have 2 clusters, because I just miscounted and I was like, whoops, oh well, and I just kept on going. I did not frog it back. I did not undo all of my work to go back and put a 3rd cluster on there. I just left it at 2 because honestly, no one's going to see it but me. So, oh, I found one. There's one right there. This green, in the very beginning, I had just started it and I messed it up right there. And so I had already done all these rows and I came back and noticed that it only had 2. I was like, you know what? You're just gonna have 2, little guy, because I'm not going back to redo all of that. So give yourself some grace. Remember that you are in charge of this. You are color pooling this. You're controlling this. Get going on it. Do your best work, and you're gonna be great. I hope you enjoyed watching this color pulling series as much as I enjoyed making it. Leave a comment down below. Let me know one thing that you learned. And no matter what time it is, always remember, it's time for yarn.